Today,
70 days ago, you chose to take our state in a new direction. And today, full of optimism and hope for a better future, we begin that journey together.
New Jersey's new governor, Governor Phil Murphy, takes the oath of office and delivers an inauguration address that was optimistic and at times emotional.
With my parents clearly in mind and knowing that they and my big brother are looking down today, satisfied.
But the first-time governor and first-time elected official will face a number of pressing issues from the moment he walks into the State House. Plus,
you don't remember. You can't remember the words of your commander-in-chief. I find that unacceptable.
Senator Cory Booker's impassioned speech over President Trump's remarks about Haiti and Africa. Did the senator go over the line or set himself up for a 2020 run? We break it all down with a roundtable. Political strategist Jeanette Hoffman, political strategist Archange Antoine, Bridget Harrison of Montclair State University, and Mark Benamo of tapintonewark.net. It's all ahead on New Jersey Now.
And may God continue to bless the great state of New Jersey and the United States of America.
Good afternoon, I'm Diane Doctor, and welcome to New Jersey Now. The cannonballs were flying, the changing of the guard in Trenton this week, and a new governor, Phil Murphy. The first shot over the bow for the Democrats. Some say 4 long years. Some say it's just getting started. And we're just getting started. What do we think of the inaugural speech? Bridget, you go first.
Very good speech. I think that most people enjoyed the speech, but very, very low on specifics. I think that in many ways, this really resembled Phil Murphy's stump speech. Talked a lot about unity, really underscored that point with, I think, kind of a throwdown for the South Jersey Democrats, where there may be a little bit of tension. Also kind of talked about President Trump and the ongoing feud that will seemingly last at least most of the Murphy administration. But I think that what many people were looking for were, we know what you've promised, how are you going to do this? And we didn't hear a whole lot about that.
We didn't get any specifics on how he was going to deliver, but he did sound a little Kennedy-esque to me.
I think, yeah, absolutely. I think what you saw, what he was doing, he was talking about national issues. He even went into talking about some of the international issues that we face in this country. But I think he was also positioning himself to make sure that he was going to do the work for New Jersey. But hey, 2020, 2024, 2028, here I am. But I think ultimately the speech was very powerful. I think this is something that New Jersey has been waiting for a very long time, especially a lot of his supporters. And I think people are excited and very hopeful.
How about you, Jeanette?
So I wasn't surprised by the speech, right? It was a kind of a highlight of all the progressive issues that he promised during the campaign with no specifics whatsoever of how we're going to pay for them, how taxpayers are going to pay for them. One thing I was disappointed that I didn't hear was any talk about affordability in New Jersey, because that is always the #1 issue for New Jerseyans, is how can we afford to live here? He talked about making New Jersey a place where millennials will want to come and where seniors can retire. But my question to Governor Murphy is, how can people afford to stay here when the property taxes keep getting higher, when he's proposing, hypothetically, a lot of tax increases on businesses and on New Jersey's residents?
Well, he's got 4 years to answer that, right? And Mark, do you think he really needed to go into that, or was this just really about laying out his vision?
I think in many ways his speech was strategic, and the fact is, yes, it was short in specifics, but hey, Phil Murphy's coming in, oh, another liberal lion is going to be thrown to the dogs down in Trenton. But this way he's being very cautious in order to not fall into that trap. And you cannot escape all the Kennedy iconography. He was sworn into office, putting his hand on the very Bible John F. Kennedy used when he was sworn in to be President of the United States. You can't escape. He's a Boston Irish Catholic himself, Phil Murphy. You cannot escape the fact that that link to JFK was present in the room, as well as his ongoing fight against Donald Trump.
I want to know how much money he gave to the Kennedy Center Foundation to let them to get that Bible out of there.
The best things in life are free. I don't know. You know?
One of the things that I saw was missing out of his speech. I did a comparison between Christie and his inauguration speech. Number one, he mentioned America 11 times in his speech. Also, he did not mention anything about faith or religion. And I think his base was a lot of faith leaders came out and supported. Another thing is the Democrats have to do a better job with embracing faith. The other part is there was not one word about black. No black Americans, no black community. And I think there would be no Phil Murphy in the governor's office if the black community didn't come out and support him very clearly.
Well, that's interesting. That's interesting you say that, because Phil Murphy is seeing kind of a disagreement with some of the black legislators in Trenton.
Over the pot
specifically, yeah, over the marijuana legislation. And just on Martin Luther King Day, Phil Murphy went to a Baptist church in Newark, Paradise Baptist Church, and the bishop railed against the legalization of recreational marijuana as actually social injustice because you're bringing more drugs into the urban communities. So it's interesting, you should bring that up, Arcade, because I think he's going to have an interesting time dealing with the Black Legislative Caucus on this very signature issue.
And his caucus in general.
Well, yeah, absolutely.
Bridget, do you think that he threaded the needle correctly, or do you think he was too vague? Do you think he stayed away from too many specifics?
Honestly, Diane, I think that he was too vague. I think that we've been hearing for over a year all of his ideas, and I think that what everyone wants to know is, how are you going to pay for them? I think, interestingly, too, the 800-pound gorilla in the room that he failed to talk about is pension reform. And he came into the governorship having very good relationships with the public employee union leaders. Now he's going to be sitting on the other side of the table, and he's on a collision course, and he has to address that, even if it is just an acknowledgement of the problem.
And
he didn't do that.
He never mentioned New Jersey Transit.
Exactly.
Right.
Which is the other 5,000-pound gorilla.
Right. So we have these looming issues, and I mean, when you look at it, the pension issue is over 30% of the state budget.
Which is
in order to
crazy.
pay for all of the programs that he wants to fund, whether it is increasing school funding or free community colleges, you have to be able to pay for that somehow. And to deny mentioning the public employee pension fund really, I think, was a misstep.
He didn't want to bring everybody down.
And he's going to have to deal with it sooner or later, and sooner because his budget address is due in February. And that, Bridget, I think is where he's going to have to really address the rising cost of pension and public health benefits, because as you said, it does take up a third of our state taxpayers' budget. And it's the taxpayers' budget, right?
Right.
So I think his spending priorities next month are going to be really interesting, because he's made a lot of promises to the public employee unions and for free community college and for full school funding that we don't know where he's going to come up with that money. So,
well, his first action, then, he signed into law the equal pay for women. Just throwing a bone to his constituency, a photo op on inaugural day. What do you think, Mark?
Well, it was really interesting. As he's getting ready to sign it, there's a Senate Majority Leader, Loretta Weinberg, and she takes the podium and says, you know, what a difference a few hours makes. You know, it's kind of setting the tone. Whether or not it actually does that much right away, but the mere symbolism of it says, hey, there's a new sheriff in town. I'm a progressive sheriff. I'm actually doubling down on what I said I was going to do during the campaign, at least in terms of policy themes. Now we have to see how he's going to act.
And on top of that, one of the first things Obama did when he was inaugurated was sign equal pay for women. So I think we see this little...
Taking a page from all the successful politicians of the past.
Well, but do you think that many New Jerseyans, I'm not denying that equal pay is an important issue. This legislation or this executive order has very real teeth when it comes to state employees, but not a whole lot beyond that, particularly given the fact that there was federal legislation that was put into place. But do you think that there were a lot of New Jerseyans for whom this is the most important issue moving forward?
I don't think so.
I mean, when we look at what Governor Chris Christie did in his first days in office, one of the first things that he started doing was vetoing the minutes of independent authorities. We all took that as being incredibly controversial, but also very strong, meaning that he was going to clean up these independent authorities. Of course, that didn't happen. But at least at the outset, we said, here's someone who's really turning Trenton upside down. You know, for Governor Murphy, I'm not sure that a lot of New Jerseyans were waiting for him to enact this specific executive order.
I think it was a big gift to his constituencies, and I think you're going to see him. Look, New Jersey right now is only one of 8 states in the country that is controlled entirely by the Democratic Party in the legislature and the governorship. And I think Phil Murphy's vision is to test out these progressive policies that we hear on the national level to make himself a contender in 2020. So I think we're going to see a lot of that. What I'm interested to see is he going to do a lot by executive order, like Christie did in the very beginning, or is he going to try and work with his legislative colleagues, the Senate President and Speaker Coughlin in the Assembly, to get things done that way? I'm not sure he's going to have a lot of support in the legislative caucus from South Jersey. We're hearing that a lot. There's a lot of tension there, and they're setting up for a very big power struggle right now.
Okay, put it on pause. We'll be right back. Next, Haiti, Africa, the Dreamers. Governor Murphy calls out President Trump on a number of controversial issues. That and more when we return. Welcome back to New Jersey Now. I'm Diane Doctor. We're talking about Governor Phil Murphy, and one of the things that came out just the other day is that the governor, despite the fact that he's a millionaire many, many times over, is planning to accept his salary, his $175,000 salary, as governor. Do we think that's a good thing, Bridget?
Sure, why not? I mean, he's working for that amount of money. It's likely that he's going to lose significant property tax deductions on the federal level. That $175,000 will go
That's
toward
about
it.
a wash.
It is
with
about
his
a wash.
$200,000 property tax
right,
bill.
he can take $10,000 off, so he's, you know, what, $15,000 shy.
But in all seriousness, I think it's actually a good sign. It says, you know what, $175,000 is not chump change. Even though I make all this money, that's still something that's significant to me. It matters to me. That's how I look at it. Yeah.
Well, and it's not a volunteer position, right? I mean, it's one of the toughest jobs in the country to be governor of New Jersey. It's a thankless job, but it's not a volunteer position. And I can see why. You know, I kind of thought he might have tried to do something where he said, I'm going to take a salary for $1. You know, the taxpayers of New Jersey need this money more than I do. But he didn't do that.
Well, it helps him distinguish himself from John Corzine, who didn't take the money, right, Mark?
Right. And also, this is his money. He's free to do what he will with it, including donate to organizations such as Big Brothers Big Sisters of Essex, Hudson, Union County, the Community Food Bank. You know, why not? He has the ability to do it. Maybe I think he will.
He could also use it for his 501c4.
I think it's a message that he's sending to people that I work for you, and so I think that's a very strong message, and also shows that he's trying to deepen his relationship roots into New Jersey, so that I think when he talks and his messages out there, he's going to say, "You're paying me. I'm going to keep working with you. I'm going to keep fighting for you." I think it's a good start. Let's see how it goes.
Let's talk about how he pledged to take on President Trump in almost every way. Is this a realistic course of action, or is he just spinning his wheels and pandering to his base? Jeanette.
Well, you know what I'm going to say. I think, look, it's all poll-tested rhetoric. I mean, for him, it's a smart political calculation in aiming to 2020 or just becoming a national figure in the Democratic Party. Trump didn't win New Jersey. His poll numbers aren't great in New Jersey. He's not really going to lose anything from his constituents by taking on Trump. He'll probably get a lot of points. I just think he needs to not take it too far. I thought it was very silly that he thought the state was going to sue Trump over the tax reform plan. I thought that was ridiculous. Like, that's an example of going too far. I mean, this is federal legislation. So I think he can do it successfully, just he needs to keep his eye on the ball in New Jersey.
How do you feel about him?
No, I think he really has an opportunity to be sort of the Jerry Brown of the East Coast. What you see is happening right now is he's already behind the scenes, has a lot of great relationships throughout the nation, and I think now he's putting all that work in the public life. I think he has a real opportunity to talk about the minimum wage and really push that agenda, push a lot of the issues that he's been talking about around equity and fairness. And so I think definitely that's exactly what he's doing every step of the way, and I think he's going to give it to Trump. I think he's going to get a lot of brownie points, and we've seen his address. He mentioned the continent of Africa, and he mentioned Haiti, and so I thought that was really powerful to say, I'm not going to back down, because remember, New Jersey is diversity. We represent pretty much this entire country, and so all the countries represented all throughout the nation are right here in our background.
But as diverse as we are, the number of people that are affected by these immigration orders is very small compared to the population at large. And I question whether this is a #1 issue for the vast majority of people who are really just grappling with affording their lives in New Jersey.
Well, it may be immediately affecting a relatively small proportion of the population. The reality is that there are many ripple effects to that. There are businesses that rely on immigrants as their workers. There are family members that often preceded immigrants. And so while you may be talking about a very small proportion of New Jersey's population, almost everyone is related to an immigrant or frequents a business that is run or owned by an immigrant. So it does have some real bearing, but I think more importantly is that it's an ideological issue. This is something where the governor talked about we're looking at this as an issue of right or wrong. And he sees himself in the column of the right, President Trump in the column of the wrong, and I think that he will use, as Jeanette was saying, the power of the courts to sue when he views the Trump administration as violating the rights of New Jerseyans.
And he's going to spend our taxpayer money to do it.
Absolutely.
And it does distract from some of the things that he may find impossible to deal with, such as the pension, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said before, that budget is going to be a doozy in February because he's made a lot of promises. I think if I'm unemployed, public employees think they're getting everything. They don't want to see any cuts, and they were promised that they wouldn't have any cuts. So, you know, it's going to be interesting. I do see these national issues as a way for him to stand out because it's going to be really hard to get anything done in New Jersey with the way the legislature is right now.
Mark, you've had a front row all week for Chasing News to the inaugural. What's your take on Phil Murphy? Is he running for president? Is he setting himself up, or is he going in for the long haul here in New Jersey?
Well, you know, my parents always told me, hey, you know, if you're looking for the next job, make sure you do the job you have correctly, right? Phil Murphy has an opportunity to do a good job here in New Jersey despite everything that's in his way. He has a lot of natural political gifts. He's got very good connections. And, you know, I've got to say also that on the local level, state, national, local, him fighting Trump is very smart. Because on the local level alone, I lived in the Ironbound neighborhood of Newark for 10 years. I've lived there for 12. What's happening now in terms of policy affects people's lives practically, directly. We're talking about families being broken up. And this immigrant experience you see in the Ironbound, it translates out throughout New Jersey because everybody in New Jersey was an immigrant once. He's got a great opportunity. And he's going to do, I think, his level best not to blow.
Okay, when we come back, we're going to talk about Cory Booker's moment in the sun this week. Welcome back to New Jersey Now. I'm Diane Doctor. This past week, Senator Cory Booker had his moment in the spotlight. Some said it was his best moment, and others said it was his worst moment. Let's take a listen.
And I've got a president of the United States whose office I respect, who talks about the countries of origins of my fellow citizens in the most despicable of manner. You don't remember. You can't remember the words of your commander-in-chief. I find that unacceptable. Mr. Chairman?
Jeanette, was Cory overreacting? Was that amount of emotion appropriate?
Well, I think it's a lot of political theater, but I think it was a smart move for Cory Booker, who definitely has a bigger agenda at the national level, and everyone's talking about him potentially being a candidate for president in 2020. I think it's exactly what he needed to do and what he's good at. I mean, the knock on Cory Booker here in New Jersey is that he's great at rhetoric, he's great at giving speeches, he's great at tweeting, but the substance and the governing and being an executive, he's not really great at that. And you know, when he was mayor of Newark, that was a huge criticism. So I think he did what he needed to do to get those headlines at the national level, but I think he's got a long way to go to prove himself as a serious candidate.
Archange, how did you feel?
I felt really good. Number one is just the fact that, you know, my family are immigrants from Haiti, and I took this issue very personal. So just to see him wanting to get clarity on the issue and to get answers. I loved every aspect of that, but more importantly, in New Jersey, we have some of the highest concentration of Africans and Haitians and folks from the Caribbean, and I felt they were looking for Cory the fighter. We've seen him give the good speeches, we've seen him talk about bipartisanship, but at that time, I thought it was really good. But more importantly, Cory said, and I love what he said that you can't call me out for treating people equally. And that's exactly what he did. He held her accountable just like he held everybody else accountable.
What about the argument that he may have gone too far and mansplained the DHS secretary?
Well, I think that that was an interesting and perhaps appropriate response, at least a spin. But I think when we look at his behavior, what we're seeing is that this is a progressive tipping of the hand, starting in August when he advocated for legalizing marijuana, then talking about in September a single-payer health system, supporting Senator Sanders' bill, and now really taking the Trump administration to task. What we're seeing is Cory Booker speaking to the various constituencies that Hillary Clinton lost in 2016 that are part of the core base of the Democratic Party, that are really important for him to move forward in a presidential bid. And he managed to do this all by bumping Phil Murphy off of some of the front page, or not the front page, but at least getting a little portion of the front page in Phil Murphy's first day in office.
Mark, do you agree?
I agree with that idea, but also I agree with the idea that I think he's just sitting there during this hearing and he's listening to somebody tell him, oh, well, you know, I don't recall. You know, the secretary was in the room at the moment when President Trump said what he said. And he's finally just saying, this is nonsense. Everybody, you know, Cory Booker's a relatively mild-mannered individual, but everybody has a limit, and I think he got to his.
Yeah, his voice sounded very strained and angry. Like you could actually, you know, so as much as it is political theater, I think there was some genuine emotion there.
You could tell it in his eyes that this really mattered for him, yes.
And he took that moment, and you're right, he did take it away from Phil Murphy. And to anyone who had any doubts as to whether he was running, I think this may have answered
This was a big tip of the cards.
And just his whole move from the Senate Transportation Committee onto the Senate Judiciary Committee. I mean, that's such a higher profile committee for him. He's going to garner a lot of headlines.
Yes.
He will.
Okay, well, that does it for another edition of New Jersey Now. Cory Booker, Phil Murphy, the whole host of characters will be watching you as we move forward here on New Jersey Now. We'll be back next week with another edition. I'm Diane Doctor. Have a great day.